precious natural beauty. Here, human settlement and development have not yet overrun the living fabric of nature. The challenge of living balanced within nature is still possible. To avoid the seemingly inevitable human damage, far-sighted residents have gathered to care for the lake valley, to cooperate in sensible development, and to protect the quality of our surroundings. These locals have joined to create a vision of sustainable Kootenay Lake living.
They visualized having all sorts of alternatives, from a ferry system that ran up and down the lake, something like the mooring used to be, to having a pathway all along the lake that dealt with foot traffic, bicycles, an alternate routeway from the cars.
It was good to see the recognition that the community had for the importance of the forest industry in their community.
The people in Castle really want to keep their close links to the nature. They don't want to have everything all paved and bulldozed out and altered. They want to work with the nature that they have.
They were reluctant to have growth happen for growth's sake. They wanted it to be managed very carefully. They were concerned about Kootenay Lake turning into another Okanagan Lake. And it was like, how do we keep this from happening in a positive, constructive manner?
My name is Peter Duryea. I'm a resident of the East Shore in Grey Creek and one of the helpers that has helped with the co-design process. I think this is a unique opportunity and a series of firsts that have never happened before around the lake area. This is the first time that we have ever looked at the lake area as a whole. This is also a first because we are working and asking the residents to participate in pictures of what they would like to see happen in the lake area. Already, 350 participants in the 6 community areas around Kootenay Lake have contributed to the many displays and the drawings, the images that you see here. It's the first time also we have ever focused on quality. We've talked about all the things we'd like to see, but this process today allows us the opportunity and tomorrow to focus on the qualities as a whole, the feelings that brought us here, that make us stay here, that make us work here to stay here sometimes too. The qualities that we cherish, how do we protect them into the future? What can we have that will fit in with our lifestyles, that will enhance them if anything, and not degrade them, and what will be sustainable for the future? We hope we are bringing this process to you today in a way that allows these feelings, these awarenesses, and these sensitivities to come to full flower. In order to do this, and in order to focus our energies in the best possible way, the Tourism Action Society has brought Stan King and his assistant Drew Ferrari into the area. Stan created co-design 25 years ago, Stan, or more.
25 will do.
He's been facilitating these kinds of processes that occurred in Granville Island, downtown Calgary, facilities. It's never been used at a regional level before, and this is exciting for Stan too. He was speaking about it on CBC Radio this morning, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his company. Stan, may I give the process over to you?
Thank you, Peter.
Indeed.
Thank you. The work that we hope to achieve in these 2 days, as listed on your agenda, starts with an introduction by your children, who will be arriving here in about 5 minutes. And they'll go through a process called the City on the Wall. And very quickly, they picture intense development taking place on one piece of land, and so it's a good reminder of the horrors that are just around the corner if you don't plan.
Have a space for the other walk. Okay, so just facing this wall here. Okay, shorter people in the front, taller people in the back.
Glad you could come. We're taking a look at the future of the region, and we'd like you to join in that.
Fishes.
Fishes.
Animals. Animals.
No
roads. We don't need roads. We can walk. Horses.
Did you think of some things over here that might go in? The thing is that this shows that it's great fun to do this kind of thing. I think I know the answer to the first one. Would you want to live here?
For me, during the last year and a half, it's been really kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. I've had the opportunity to go to all of the lake communities and be involved in the co-design process, working with residents in each area to talk about the things that they value. Each community has its own emphasis and would do well to specialize in its area of best potential. At the same time, there are ideas that all or many communities could share to everyone's benefit. Water and non-motor vehicle networks between population centers, attractions, and workplaces could intersect at market and service centers so that the natural movement patterns would shift from vehicles to slower methods. Stopovers would become more leisurely, so visitors would share the slower pace of life on the lake. Residents seem unanimous in their desire to be stewards of their special place. They have traveled enough to know that such natural settings are very rare on this planet, and the pressure of an increasing population, visitors, development, housing, industry, and government inattention will perpetuate a deterioration here, as such human activities have inevitably done everywhere else, unless we plan a different future and make the required effort to see that it happens. The East Shore community had something that was a little bit different from other communities in some respects. We had a very high level, proportionately in the population, a very high level of participation. We had a series of kitchen meetings, over 20 of them, attended by anywhere from 4 to 8 people. Those kitchen meetings dealt with the 13 questions that were distributed to most of the communities to look at trying to identify the key words and themes and ideas. When we came to the workshop itself, we did a mind mapping experience where we brought together the key words that people came up with in the kitchen meetings and put them on a very large sheet of paper along the wall and use those key words to identify the themes that people wanted to work with. The small groups that met to put together their specific image were assisted by an artist and a writer. Trails, hiking, and transportation. Again, this was a theme that I noticed in a number of communities. Connecting villages and population areas and services by non-vehicular traffic. They were just so aware on the East Shore of having one road where it connects everything and the amount of traffic along there. There's a lot of people that use bicycles or pedestrian transportation or have horses, and there just isn't the connecting points for that. Ecological planning and management. In Crawford Bay, there were actually several images that had to do with low scale, low impact. And ecological planning and management really looked at the industrial side of employment in the area. No clear cuts, wildlife corridors, low impact human activity, awareness of cause and effect, small local mill, town center off the lakeside, riparian reserves, And on the image itself, it's a very rich image. It's has a lot of a range of activities taking place in the same area. Sensitive, innovative logging. Several of the communities really wanted to integrate the industrial component for providing employment, to moderate the current style of operations, so there was more local employment, more sensitivity to the visual environment and the health and safety in the community. So this is a strong image. Cooperative sawmill, research center, nursery, wholesale, retail outlet for wood products, value-added factory, a water bottling, untouched wilderness, helicopter logging, small scale wood operations on the forest slopes. There's two images here on ecotourism, learning experiences, driving lessons and more pullouts for RVs, stiff penalties for littering, better farmers markets, recycling center, banned sea-doos from the lake, trails with overnight hiking and ski cabins, bicycle trail beside the road and horseback trails, restrictions on hunting, a village square with a good place to eat, commercial kitchens making cheese, baking, mini French village. Again, the scale is what's critical. This is a very well-received image. Ecotourism local control is awards listing local tours, guides, classes, exhibits, auditorium, interpretive trails, nature trail, indigenous plants, the arts center, down at the ferry terminal at Kootenay Bay, a place for performance, for craft sales, market stalls, vegetables, performing arts center. Quite a popular idea. Also, if you think also in terms of what the Balfour community would like to see on the other side of the ferry landing too, there's a connection there.
Nelson Co-Design Workshop, it was one workshop held on the 27th of November with really strong participation. There were about 75 people who came and stayed for the whole day, became quite intently involved with designing some features for Nelson's waterfront. One thing that we did is we looked at the waterfront, as one can with waterfront, as, especially in Nelson, as a line going from west to east, so that these concepts, in a sense, are not mutually exclusive. Rather, they are seen as there being different activities as we move along the waterfront. So it was acknowledged that there would be space that would be less developed and more left more in the same state that it's in right now, and other areas along the waterfront that were quite amenable to development, and that people felt that there was quite consensus around having those developed. This is a very popular image. It's the concept of some kind of public walkway and bikeway. It would be going right as close to the lakefront as it could. There would be a separation from the airfield, but also from other waterfront activities that would be behind it by some kinds of shrubs and low plants. Again, that there would be spots along the walkway where you could stop, so that there would be benches, picnic tables, and so that other low-scale activities could take place at different points along the walkway. Moving slightly east, again at the Cottonwood Creek area, would be a potential Japanese garden. Through the co-design process, one potential site for that Japanese garden emerged, and that would be, again, in the low-impact area of the waterfront, in a habitat that would be suitable for wildlife viewing and so on. People liked the concept of a boardwalk and shops, and they were concerned that the winds might be too high for a marina over in that area. Okay, so moving along further east, this would be in the location of the present Lakeside Park. And that the concept here is for an amphitheater and boathouse, tea house. And the idea with the amphitheater was to utilize this small bay and have an already, it's sort of a man-made hill that forms a semicircle. And we would have performing arts events there. It would be possible to have a floating stage moored and butted to the land, was the concept here. And approximately 200 to 400 people, it was thought, could fit in the bowl. The tea house, boat house. The idea is to have a tea house where you can go in and have tea, and there would be a boat house underneath it where the rowing club could store boats and other people could store boats as well. There would be some kind of boat rental. It would have to be a winter weatherproof structure with glass surrounding the tea house, so it would have a lovely view. Multi-purpose conference center, marina, hotel with parking. They want it to blend into the environment. In this one, they thought it could be tiered to slope with the land, so it'd be higher at the back and giving great views from the hotel rooms.
Out of all of that you mentioned, are there any that you could regard as being of interest to the region? And we will list those, and then they could become topics for discussion this afternoon.
One of the things that come through for me here probably is small is beautiful. Creston is sort of a gateway coming from the South United States and in from Cranbrook into this area. We want to focus on people as groups, not age groups. We're all sort of children, adults, seniors. National park setting. They talked much about that at the meeting. If we create anything around town or outside of town, they wanted to blend in with what we got. They don't want us to go in and pave and make things, trying to use the natural surroundings with the trees and all the things that we already have. One of the ideas is the log and pulse beam solarium and botanical gardens with exotic plants, flowers, birds, lizards, restaurant, cafe. Agri center, approximately 15 acres near the highway. Includes indoor arena, outdoor rodeo arena, paddock, barn, racetrack, gift shop, clubhouse, dressing rooms, washrooms, facilities. Ample parking, outdoor track, indoor arena for equestrian shows. Seating capacity of 1,500, the indoor arena to 2,500, wheelchair accessibility to all facilities, underground public access for parking. Barn would have staples for public viewing and children's activity center. They talked about the biosystem products, sawdust and wood chip burner to dry chicken manure for fertilizer and produce methane gas to heat the greenhouses for exotic fruit and flowers. And over here we're going to the small industry again. Dairy, milk products and fancy cheeses. Fruit processing, fruit drying, fruit leather, candies, canning, juice, jams and jellies, chutneys, apple cider, vegetables canning, pickling, asparagus, herbs, dried, fresh and vinegars. Greenhouse growing exotic foods, mushroom in Quonset huts, and research lab, organic strain improvements.
There are different visions out there for each town, and I think the next stage will be the people with this kind of planning to talk to the other people who are doing planning as well, and say the forestry or whatever, to make sure all of those ideas are integrated.
I understand it will be presented to town council. The town is very interested in what we're doing.
We have got mentioned the bikeway, walkway links and the water routes. And so if that was generally put under the heading of transportation as a topic, would that be suitable?
It wasn't only just for Belfry, it was the west side of Kootenay Lake. The co-design idea was to try and reach the communities from Ainsworth, Harriet Proctor, and then the North Shore down towards Nelson. They visualized having all sorts of alternatives, from a ferry system that ran up and down the lake, something like the Moy used to be, to having a pathway all along the lake that dealt with foot traffic, bicycles, an alternate routeway from the cars. They wanted to have a local market. There were 2 or 3 done on the market. A lot of people visualize it happening at the landing, where the ferry comes in, because then you've got a captive
Very captive.
Very, very captive audience. The idea of a community plaza or some finding a village was exciting for a lot of people. They wanted to have the idea of a central plaza where you had meeting places, greenery around it, encouraged walking. There was also discussion about somehow zoning the lake shore so that it wasn't an endless row of houses, but that there were green belts. It was recognized that, you know, so many miles outside of a village was as far as the houses could go, and then there would be a recognized green belt. A lot of this is happening in Balfour, but the whole idea of having a place where you can compost, a big compost bin, and somehow a recycling depot and sewage treatment plant. People were hoping to be able to achieve this to keep the lake clean without having, you know, astronomical taxes. That seemed to be one of the key common features in terms of original level, like Stan was talking about, that was a concern for most people who attended, was keeping Kootenay Lake clean. The whole idea that Kootenay Lake is the center of our being, and that it's something that we all share, and we need to keep the hillsides forested so that the water that goes into the lake is high quality. One theme expressed by many people was that they were reluctant to have growth happen for growth's sake. They wanted it to be managed very carefully, concerned about Kootenay Lake turning into another Okanagan Lake, and it was like, how do we keep this from happening in a positive, constructive manner?
Some of the most beautiful pictures came from the workshop in Lardo, and I don't know what explains that. Lardo Valley was the second workshop that was held February 27th, 1993 in the Lardo Valley Community Center. This one, mixed forest. The forest will be of uneven age, have many species, have many areas of activity and non-activity. Divisioned here are Christmas tree farms, a local water-powered sawmill, honey production, maple syrup production, sheep raising, shepherd dog training, logs being hauled by truck and horse. And it's a very rich image showing a lot of different activities in the valley. Small sawmill operation, there's sheep grazing, looks like a tree farm or something agricultural, fruit picking, bees, beehives. This looks like it might be silviculture. Small cuts on the mountains. Lardo Industrial Park. One of the things that there was a couple of groups that really wanted to look at different perspectives for industrial uses. Local economy based local resources, diverse local economy based on the forest, locally based agriculture, service industry, small companies, log markets, local control. Glaco Beach Hauser. This image was, when I go over it, this one was actually used in negotiating with the Ministry of Forest to have public access to Crown land on the Hauser Beach, Glaco Beach, and steps have been taken. This was one of the low cost, no cost items that was identified at the end of the workshop and has moved ahead. So it has outhouses, chain and log enclosures for swimming area, 6 to 10 picnic tables, knapweed removed, children's play area, quiet at night. It's the warmest water for swimming in the area, so they want it's community use area. Another one, Lardo Valley Tourist Opportunities, a local food market, small cabins, boat dock, trails coming to the lake, hiking, biking, skiing, etc.
Basically what we did, I'd say of the 20 drawings that were done, probably 12 of them were done along the Castle waterfront. Is anybody here familiar with Castle? Is anybody not quite sure? So, okay. Now this may have some relevance to other municipalities that might be on the water. We wanted to have a combination, again, of very rural, pastoral, park-like waterfront, and we also wanted to have some places that were very urban. Okay, now what we got to the old Federal Wharf that goes in to the water, and there's nothing on it right now. It was paved and it's kind of just separated there. We were thinking, what a great way of kind of, as the town kind of grows, rather than spilling over into the residential area or along the highway or somewhere else, let's reconnect with the waterfront, which was the reason for having the town in the first place as a transshipment point. So let's build maybe a little restaurant or a little museum or a little ship's chandlery or gifts or whatever along there, and have a place where we can have some tables and benches and things like that. And then, of course, when the stern wheeler comes in, people can unload and go whatever. Bicycle paths and the pedestrian paths along the lake as an alternate to the vehicular traffic. Tour boat that would go from town to town and go right into the docks and go out. And then wherever you have maybe bed and breakfasts or places people could go by horse-drawn carriage or any sort of thing, trying to recreate the total turn of the century, the last century experience. This is an idea that could be done anywhere. This is something I think regionally here. This is anywhere along the lake, small scale bed and breakfast type cottages. People come by boat maybe, or maybe by car, and they just stay there and participate in things like kayaking, canoeing, etc. Nothing big, no big resort development is what the people generally wanted. Again, stay within Vimy Park along there. The idea of using it for what they call art in the park. The people in Castle really want to keep their close links to the nature. They don't want to have everything all paved and bulldozed out and altered. They want to work with the nature that they have around the waterfront.
Seeing all of them together in a short while like this shows that there is a great intensity and a great variety of energy looking at the future. So it is a great resource, and I would say a great reason for optimism that you will achieve what you see as a desirable future. So, Drew, I wonder if I could ask you to come on now.
Because, as Dan mentioned, we only have 5 artists here today, we've had to somehow distill all of the last 3 or 4 hours of presentations into 5 categories, so that just gives us a little bit more to focus on. So as the presentations have been going on, I've been making some notes and trying to extract what particular features are regional in nature, so that because you come from all over the region, we need to explore them together. So first of all is developing local themes, local thematic development. Secondly would be transportation and linking issues. Thirdly would be regional connections and cohesion. Fourth, growth management. That was related to policy and planning development issues. And lastly, environmental concerns and sustainability. Those are really broad categories. What we've done is, on the wall behind, we've outlined those 5 categories, and beside each is our 3 blank spots, 1, 2, and 3. And that's the spot where you would go through the whole list, just kind of walk by the whole wall, and in each spot beside each section put a tick in the box where you think your priority lays with that particular feature. Oh, no, it's okay.
I mean, it's really, we could be standing here for an hour. Back when I was talking to the other lady in our
30 after you've saw these sheets. So you can put a wall and get your head clear before we start to do this.
Regional connections or cohesion issues. And the highest rating was communication among communities. Second to that was a single cohesive bioregion. That will be put on the table right over in the corner. Transportation or linking issues. The highest rating was limited access to protected areas. Second to that, ferries and stern wheelers, and also pathways. That will be on the middle table over there. Environmental and sustainability concerns. The top vote was balancing development with quality of life, and also equal to that, top rating, water quality and access. The next, growth management issues. And the top rating was stewardship of natural resources. And second to that, 2 items, local control of resources and controlling / limiting growth, containment zones. So, to begin with, then I wonder if you would experience a moment of chaos and then wander around and decide where it is you want to settle. Ruth?
So diverse from the lushness of the Creston Valley to the kind of the total mountain country that we live in.
So maybe then we need a symbol that encompasses all those things. You know, like maybe you need some kind of a symbol that's got your orchards here and your lake in the middle and your mountains here. And the idea of this is as an educational process on all different levels with a humility clause in there somewhere. That just because we've decided to do this now doesn't mean we know how to do it right.
No, because there'd be somebody starting up a little business taking people by taxi up to the bed and breakfast. The bed and breakfast would come down by car and pick the people up at the ferry and take them back. Yeah, that's what
The Gulf Coast Civil would
Sure.
come to the ferry.
People would adjust. They really would.
Okay, so we'll just do one of those guys. Now, what other kind of houses do you want in there?
True. Sure.
That's a lollipop.
Trees, yeah. I draw trees that way.
Stick people. Stick scribbles now, when I finish.
No, that's
Trails
good.
in between this, hiking trails, is that?
Yeah, it's actually in there, believe it or not.
I'm doing a terrible job of being a writer, though. I'm barely getting things down. It's too much fun. Well, what else about this passport? I got $5
Yeah,
coupon book.
the passport.
Oh, you said something about values or warnings or
But
what did you say?
well, we've talked about it down there, that we're communicating our values, a bit about what we're offering, what our expectations
Okay.
are. And it would be done in sort of through the concept of a passport, like welcome to our world. You're welcome to come, we'll share it with you, but respect it.
Definitely invite.
I'm in my way.
Yeah, we see that.
That's where we started.
See, you thought you might help. So now,
He thought it up in the first place.
thank you.
saying, even if we have established our values,
Thanks.
but some developer comes in with
Yeah,
totally different
exactly.
values, how do we deal with that?
Exactly. That level of awareness is actually has more impact than on the guy that's driving down the road in his camper.
How do we educate the developer?
That's the point.
Okay.
Most often it's through regulations, strictly.
Well, through planning,
Or
By becoming... Having a plan in place, yes.
or the planning that says you can only build this kind of house and
Then
this.
the developer fits himself into this plan, or he may not be that.
taking the initiatives.
Taking initiative, becoming an entrepreneur and developing whatever needs to be developed here.
Our group was looking at regional connections, regional cohesiveness, and specifically looking at the top-rated requests were to investigate communication amongst communities and a single cohesive bioregion. And slowly it started to emerge the idea that we would like visitors to have when they come to the region, that they would be coming into a special region and that they would be able to feel like when they were in it as opposed to when they weren't. And in a sense it was almost like coming into a new country. And there would be, we sort of envisioned some concept of gateways, which would be entry points into this special region. Over time, as we just started to brainstorm this idea, it evolved into what you'll see here, the concept of Kootenay Lake Bioregional Park, which would be like just a self-declared living park. It's where we live, it's where we work, but all the discussions that were taking place yesterday led us to believe that people value first and foremost some very important quality of life attributes and values that are basically like you want to keep things clean and relatively quiet, and we want people to respect the environment when they're here, want them to respect our way of life. And so we can put that out to people and actually offer it as kind of a wonderful thing for them to come and experience with us.
But a park that maybe didn't follow national and provincial park guidelines in a narrow sense, but was a park in which people were living, earning a livelihood, whether it was through tourism or logging or mining or cottage industry or agriculture, that the attitude that we had that we were living in a park and stewardship, respect for the land, and that we wanted to provide an opportunity for one place on the planet where we were really trying to treat it with the highest of respect.
So in my group, we attempted to address growth management issues. And words like carrying, definitions like carrying capacity came up, like how much of any growth can you have and how can it be managed so that you preserve and maintain the things that you think you've identified that you should be looking after. What we ended up with for concept was to plan rather than manage. Plan the stewardship of natural resources beyond concerns at a local level within the principles of wellness, like earth health, to integrate the values of people and the integrity of places with the policies and procedures that would carry the vision. We became aware that as members of our communities and new members of the community coming in, as well as visitors to the community, we may not always be aware of how to behave as good citizens of the earth or of the region. And so this idea of a code of ethics or a pamphlet or some kind of guidelines or recommendations of how to be a good resident, visitor, whatever, might be in order.
He'd be prepared to meet with a group of people. He would be prepared to do, I think, quite a few things. He found it pretty exciting yesterday. He wants to know what happened today. And I think this is the kind of thing he'd like to be involved in, because a lot of what he does is, permits. I mean, it's very sort of tedious and mundane. To actually get involved with some regional planning, I think that the planners will be quite excited by it.
The kind of development that we want to see to maintain the quality of life would be a kind of village development, a centralizing of a group of houses, and then green belts in between. Now, we don't have other villages in here, obviously.
The reason for the green belts is to maintain watershed, to maintain habitat for animals, and to have the least amount of impact on the land as we continue to develop. A hiking trail which is worked through an area which has been selectively logged. There's also in the village an indication that we felt that home-based industry, home-based businesses would be the way to go, cottage crafts. But the obvious benefits, I suppose, are a clean, healthy environment, quality of water, quality of life, and just a very holistic approach to everything.
What was quite a long list here. What was your subject? Subject was according to activity.
Themes, thematic development.
Yeah. The first, the main item was what you do on the lake. So then you have the wildlife and hiking, biking.
The topic that we first discussed was transportation and linking, things like that. There were three main or predominant subtopics: ferries, sternwheelers, pathways, and the last one was limited access to protected area. As I think I was saying just a little bit ago, I think the concept of transportation, particularly like water transportation and whatnot, has been, I think, discussed by every other group that's been making a presentation here. Because I think, as I see with so many communities situated along the lake shore, there's a sort of a unifying way that we can put the various groups together, that the idea of a sternwheeler or other sort of tour boat or passenger ferry system would be the ideal alternative to the automobile. Not only will it be an enjoyable experience for both tourists and residents alike, but it relieves the pressure on our roads, or making them wider. It relieves the pressure on development along the highways because the emphasis will be on the water access. So it'll reestablish the historical sorts of settlement patterns that this area experienced 100 years ago. So again, Marty drew this beautiful stern wheeler, and as I say, I'll read what I've got here. Oh, we were looking at various sorts of routes, and without going into an encyclopedic sort of itinerary, basically, because of the central location, or I should say the hub that Nelson plays in this region, that probably the string wheelers would originate from there, go out the west arm, and maybe going up the north arm one day, and maybe in alternate days going down the south arm, and any combination, stopping at communities along the way, stopping at maybe little resorts along the way, or individual bed and breakfasts, or whatever. And it could be used, it would be a year-round operation, not just for as a means for getting from point A to B, but also as an experience in itself. To just go on with the boats, the other concept was in terms of the railroad. We have the railroad running just within the Kootenay Lake area, of course, from Preston over to Nelson. And wouldn't it be great if we could either rent or lease times of the day or times of the year that we could run a Kootenay Lake historical train on that. Their other consideration was pathways. And pathways, we thought, okay, well, we want pathways along the highways that goes along the lake. We want to have them separate from the vehicular traffic. And there was a discussion of we like to have access to the beaches wherever there is public access, but we don't know about. What we've kind of encapsulated here is to show the road, to show a separate path. In some cases, the path may very well be on the lakeside. And at these sort of places where you turn out, you have a place to park your car, bicycle places because the bicycle paths as well, and then just a pedestrian path that goes down to the beach.
Did I see something somewhere about a network of paths? I think there needs to be a network of footpaths. The zero-grade trail from East Kootenay to Argenta. I think it needs to continue across the valley, up the other side over to New Denver and to Nakusp. I think we need a trail on each side of the lake that goes down the lake from Argenta to here to Creston. High up, low down, maybe there need to be two trails there, and same on the other side of the lake to Nelson. Right? And there need to be at hubs of these places. There need to be something which is quite common in Australia and New Zealand, which are backpackers hostels. Very cheap and financially rewarding. There are competing chains of backpackers hostels.
It seems also to me that you're ready to start making the plan of certain of the elements. And you could draw on the plan certain things like the routes, the transportation routes, gateways, the historic train, bikeways, walkways, I mentioned this morning.
Yep, go up the goat and then go to the next creek to the left. Next creek to the left. Well, that's it. That top end in there is the Kayanuku. That is the Kayanuku, and that's if you here.
Or just because it was smaller, so that she could get a bike trail for the kids from school to Great Creek or something.
Right.
And then get them working on it.
Or looking at specific strategies that pertain to one of these.
So you take this video and you show it at the school. You have one or two interested teachers who would like the children to be involved in the planning of the locality, doing community studies. So they see the video, and then you have an educational exercise you can follow up with.
We've identified a vision for the lake. I think we've come to a consensus on that. There's enough in the way of repeated theme. The language is all starting to sound the same. The images are very close. Maybe it's time to move on from that rather than. I think we know what we want.
I find the idea of a regional area really exciting. And like I said, it's not something I even considered before or thought about. Just being here has connected me with the whole Kootenay bioregion, and I feel a part of something now which I didn't really before.
for me, I keep thinking, how do we reach out to people? How do we get to the masses? How do we get Joe Blow out there to take an interest?
What's the fundamental question here? How can we have the residents we have an increased load of visitors which we accept are coming and in some cases wish to have come? How can we have them come and not feel an impact that's unacceptable to us?
It's been my experience that we never really know what we're doing. We just think we do. I don't know what we've accomplished here per se, and I especially don't know what it's going to mean to our future. Personally, I hope that we've taken a step today and yesterday toward defining a healthy Kootenay Lake of the future.
It is really my hope and desire that this process doesn't end here, that this group and others keep on meeting, joining in some way to make this happen.
If you ever wanted to come up with a concept of what you would like to do to develop the potential around the lake in the future, I think you've got the makings of a fine group right here, and I would just like to see it carry on.
Even while there are several people of like mind, there are still some fairly contentious issues that were being discussed here today. But without any, I think, again, hostility, with an air to wanting to listen and appreciate and understand.
So it takes the impetus away in some respects from the developer thought, the developing thought, and leaves it with the resident thought as to how do we want our future. So it's probably the only way to do it appropriately. I think it takes a long time to do it. I think it takes quite a lot of concentrated, intense effort with skilled people.
All I can say is that you can't stop progress, no matter how much you would like to. Where there's an area as beautiful as this, you're going to get more and more people coming to it. But I think it's up to each and every one of us, not as a group, but individually and as a group, to ensure that we have a great quality of life.
I'm really pleased with how all these different plans and all the different aspects of the plans seem to all meld together already. They overlap, they reinforce each other's ideas. I see no great conflict at all in what people are wanting. It's remarkable the unity of ideas that are expressed. And what we're seeing are different facets of the same overall concept, which I think has been expressed in many different ways at this conference.
Very largely, the charms of this area are visual. It's exceptionally beautiful. And so to come together in a small group and ask an artist to portray the future focuses people's attention on a value, and it raises in front of these people a collective image. And Carl Jung has stated that this constitutes the strongest force in the universe, when you get a community focused on a collective image. And so the realization of their wishes is virtually ensured.